You know, whenever somebody asks me, John, what is one movie that is absolutely primed for a remake? I always say the same thing. The Last Starfighter. The Last Starfighter is filled with all sorts of 80s goodness and is one of my absolute favorite 80s films. Like one of the previous movies we did in Movies in 20, Mystery Men, this movie, The Last Starfighter, is a movie that was way ahead of its time. So I thought we would make it the newest subject of this Movies in 20. Now, the purpose for these is to give you guys an idea about what is this movie about. So when you're hearing us talking about it, you guys will be able to follow along and you'll know everything that happened in the movie. The second purpose, though, is to get you hopefully motivated to go and watch the full movie yourself. I was really encouraged by all you guys who watched the Mystery Men Movies in 20, who then immediately wrote in and said you went right away to go and watch the full movie. I hope you do that too. Okay, guys, with that down, let's get into The Last Starfighter. The Last Starfighter was released first back in 1984 and clocks in at a really nice about 90, 91, 92 minutes. It was directed by Nick Castle. It was one of his first films, and he later went on to direct movies like Dennis the Menace, Major Payne, and that Ellen DeGeneres comedy, Mr. Wrong. Side note, Castle also wrote the 1981 classic Escape from New York with John Carpenter. Our main hero in the movie is played by actor Lance Guest, who inexplicably never really did many other big major projects after The Last Starfighter other than Jaws the Revenge, which I'm sure everybody would like to forget, but whatever. He's awesome in The Last Starfighter. Anyway, Alex is a dedicated, hardworking kid who lives in the Starlight Starbright trailer park with his mom and his little brother Lewis. It's a great little community where everybody knows everyone and they all support each other. Now, Alex helps around the park fixing various maintenance problems for the residents, but he dreams of moving away and living a bigger life. While all of his friends are preparing to go to the local community college, he dreams of going off to a bigger city university with his girlfriend, Maggie, aka Mags. Side note, Mags is played by Weekend at Bernie's star, Catherine Mary Stewart, and when I was growing up, Mags in The Last Starfighter was like one of the absolute most stupidly pretty girls in any movie ever. Like to 12-year-old John, she was facial human perfection. Anyway, the one personal escape that Alex enjoys and finds real pleasure in the park is this lone arcade style video game that sits in front of the park's office. It's a video game called Starfighter. Alex plays it constantly, and it begins with the narrator saying the following phrase. Greetings, Starfighter. You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada. Alex's dilemma of wanting to live a bigger life outside of the park is brought into focus one afternoon when he and Mags are getting ready to head off to the beach for the day with their friends, when at the last moment he's told one of the seniors in the park has their power out and needs fixing. Alex, being the completely responsible, kind-hearted, considerate person that he is, has to stay behind while Mags and his friends go off to have fun. Now, on top of that, and this is kind of key to understanding who Alex is, he's also anxiously waiting for his student loan approval to come through so he can begin planning, this big life he wants to leave far from home. But he can't do that or go to the big city university unless he gets that loan. So at the end of this long day where Alex has been helping out the various residents of the park, Alex treats himself to a game of Starfighter, to try to relax. Now, as he's playing the game, the park manager, Otis, I love this character, by the way, he comes by. Alex laments to him his frustration with his life right now, but Otis, being clearly wise, tells Alex, things change, always do. You'll get your chance. Important thing is, when it comes, you gotta grab it with both hands and hold on tight. So Alex returns his attention back to the game, which is actually going really well this game session, when Maggie returns from her day at the beach. As they talk, Alex realizes he's not gotten any further in the game than this than he is right now. He, Mags, Otis, they all get really excited. Otis begins yelling out to everybody in the trailer park, everybody come here, Alex is about to bust the record. This is a great moment because it highlights the tight-knit community they have here in the park. It's the kind of community I kind of wish my neighborhood was. Within moments, all the trailer park inhabitants are gathered around the machine, cheering on Alex as he goes to try to break the record. And then it happens. He destroys the boss command ship and defeats the game, breaking the record. And again, if I can just put in a personal note here, can I just say that while some people may roll their eyes at the idea of everyone in the community getting excited just because some kid is about to break a video game record, to me, there's something really beautiful in that scene. That whole idea of community, of supporting each other, of cheering on each other, I want more of that in our culture. Okay, so a little later that night, Alex's mom returns home from work and she's obviously troubled. Turns out Alex's loan application results came in and he didn't get the loan, which means for him, going to the big school he wanted to attend was now out of the question, and Alex's dreams take a major hit. Completely distraught and angry, Alex runs outside and paces around in frustration. And this is where the major turning point in the movie happens. You see, a car pulls up that honestly looks like the DeLorean from Back to the Future if the DeLorean was a station wagon. Anyway, a man named Centauri, who claims to be the creator of the Starfighter game, asks Alex if he knows who broke the record on the game. When Alex tells Centauri it was him, Centauri says he has an urgent matter to discuss with him and invites him into the car. So when Alex gets in, he notices that there's another person beside him in the back seat, but his face is covered in shadow, very mysterious. Centauri says that the mysterious figure is Beta. Alex goes to shake Beta's hand, but instantly gets a bit of a shock, and Beta jumps out of the car. Centauri tells Alex that he's the best he's ever seen at Starfighter and has a proposition for him. The car takes off with Alex in it, and it speeds down the road at incredible speed. Alex wants to know where they're going, and Centauri tells him it's a surprise. Suddenly, the car takes off from the ground and flies through the sky into space. The car, I mean, it looked like a DeLorean, so there you kind of got it, but it's also a spaceship, obviously. Okay, side note here, as the car takes off and transforms into like its spaceship mode, we are treated to some of the most truly horrible visual effects, well, you know, at least by today's standards. But you got to remember, this movie came out in '84, like 37 years before the recording of this video. So I don't know, maybe it was the state of the art at the time. I don't know. Anyway, the important thing is that the effects are just tools helping to tell the story. And even though the tools are bad by today's standards, they help tell the story anyway, and so they just sort of fade into the background. It might actually say something about our over-reliance on visual effects today, but that's another topic for another time, I guess. Point is, once you get over how bad the effects are, you actually really start to figure out that they do help the movie. So now flying through space, Centauri takes Alex to a planet called Rylos, where we get filled in on what's actually going on. So the video game was actually a test, trying to find individuals throughout the universe who possess the gift, as they call it, the gift to be starfighters, elite pilots to command powerful ships called Gunstars, which is actually a bloody fantastic name when you think of it. I love the name of that, Gunstar. That's cool. Anyway, Rylos is the central planet of something called the Star League. In Star Trek terms, kind of think of them as the United Federation of Planets. Centuries ago, the founders of the Star League created something called the Frontier. This is important. An energy force field that surrounds the system worlds, protecting them from the evils that lie outside of it. However, the son of Rylos' leader, Zur, has betrayed Rylos and has joined forces with the evil Kodan Armada and is helping them to break through the frontier so that they can invade the Star League worlds. And only the Starfighters can stop them. Now you gotta remember, 5 minutes before this, Alex never thought aliens or spaceships or any of those things existed, so all of this is understandably very overwhelming for Alex, who never signed up for this. He bumps into an alien in a flight suit who introduces himself as Grig. This becomes our, probably second most important character in the movie. Alex's navigator for their Gunstar. Think of Grig as like Goose to Tom Cruise's Maverick in Top Gun. Alex tells Grig he doesn't want to be a starfighter and just wants to go home. A brief discussion/argument breaks out between Grig, Centauri, and Alex because apparently it's illegal to recruit starfighters from non-Star League worlds, and Alex doesn't even want to be there. Finally, Centauri begrudgingly agrees to take Alex back home, and they depart. We then cut to the Frontier, the big force field around the Star League, where the Kodan command ship is working on cutting through the force shield. Zur is on the bridge of the Kodan ship, where it is revealed to us that the Kodan Emperor gave Zur command of the fleet in exchange for helping them break through the frontier and helping them defeat the Star League. Zur will then be made Emperor of Rylos. However, the Kodan commander, Krill, thinks Zur is an idiot and resents having to follow his orders. The Kodan are able to break a small hole in the Frontier shield and fire off several rounds of what they call a meteor gun, with Zur giving the Kodan the exact location of the Starbase Command. The meteors fly towards Rylos and crash into Star Command with all the starfighters, except for Alex, of course, who just left, still inside. Then, Zur is told that one lone starfighter, Alex, left the command base before the meteor gun hit it. Meanwhile, on Earth, Centauri returns Alex and gives him a communicator just in case he ever changes his mind and decides to return to the Star League. Alex takes it and says goodbye. Alex later returns home late, and when he tries to go to bed, he realizes that somebody's already in it, who looks exactly like him. Do you remember that mysterious guy in the backseat of Centauri's car? They called him Beta. Turns out Beta is a robot called a simuloid, an android who can take on a target's exact appearance when they touch. Beta explains to Alex that he is there as a courtesy so that nobody would know Alex is off-world saving the galaxy. I actually really like this Beta character because of the standard android kind of personalities we get used to seeing in this era of sci-fi movies. Beta has a really sarcastic yet very human personality. Again, it's just very different from the norms of sci-fi movies at that time, and I found it rather refreshing. So yeah, I love this character. We then cut outside to the front gate and office of the trailer park, and we see a mysterious hitchhiker dropped off. As he approaches the office, the Starfighter game beeps and springs to life. It shoots light at the hitchhiker, whose human face disappears. The game itself reveals that this hitchhiker is actually an alien creature known as a Zandozan. That's a weird name, but yeah, say it with me. Zandozan, an intergalactic hit beast sent by Zur to kill the last Starfighter. Back in Alex's room, Alex tells Beta that he's going to call Centauri to come get him and get him out of there so Alex can get back to living his life. So Alex goes outside to use the communicator that Centauri gave him to tell him, come and get Beta, when suddenly the Zandozan attacks him. Alex ducks behind a wall as the Zandozan is shooting at him, and Centauri arrives just in time to shoot the assassin's arm off before shooting him again in the chest. Centauri and Beta then explain to Alex that Zur will continue to send assassins to kill him and that his best option is to go back with Centauri and become a starfighter. Beta will remain to make sure Zur thinks that Alex is still on Earth. At this point, we see that the Zandozan isn't quite dead yet and fires off one last shot at Alex, but Centauri jumps in front of him and takes the shot instead. The Zandozan is now dead, but Centauri is wounded. Centauri insists that he's okay, and Alex agrees to go back to the Star League with him. So after another flight through space, Centauri and Alex return to Starfighter Command, but Centauri's condition has, to us the audience, obviously gotten worse since he got shot. They practically crash land at what remains of the base after the meteor gun attack. Grig comes out to meet them, but appears to be too late. Centauri says, "Alex, I want you to know that it was for the greatest good that I brought you back," as we see Centauri die. Now, let me interject something here. The death of Centauri always hit me harder than I ever thought it would. You see, on the surface, Centauri is a fairly one-dimensional character, but when he dies, talking about how he brought Alex back, I realized that he was, indeed a deeper character than what he appeared to be on the surface, and we were more attached to him than we thought we were, at least more than I thought I was. And it took for him to die for me to realize that. Anyway, I just thought it was a really nice moment in the film. Now, Grig takes Alex to the last remaining Gunstar. The rest were destroyed in the meteor gun attack. Alex recognizes all the controls as they are the exact same as they are in the video game, but there is one big button he doesn't recognize. Grig warns him not to hit it, for it is something that Grig designed himself called the Death Blossom, a weapon, he says, of last resort. So obviously we know that the Death Blossom is going to be used at some point in the movie. As Grig and Alex prepare to take off, Alex realizes all the other starfighters died in the attack and that he and Grig, in the one remaining Gunstar, are all that's left. And he understandably has a bit of a panic attack. This is The Last Starfighter, huh? Get it? The name of the movie? Anyway, Grig launches into space and they're flying around, and Grig decides that Alex needs a little bit of target practice, so he launches out some targets, for Alex to work out some of the rest. And it becomes clear to us as the audience that after a few moments of getting adjusted to the controls, Alex takes out all of the targets with total ease. He truly does have the gift. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Beta continues to successfully pretend that he's Alex, but he realizes another Zandozan has arrived but hasn't attacked him yet. Cut back to Grig and Alex as they approach the frontier. Grig explains that they're going to have to knock out the communications turret on the command ship in order to disorient all of the fighters that will be attacking them. When they reach the frontier, they encounter a lone enemy ship. A dogfight ensues that ends with Alex blasting the enemy to pieces. But instead of being excited, Alex continues to panic, accusing Grig of nearly getting them killed. Grig apologizes and agrees to take Alex back home. Again, telling him that he might still live a long, happy life until the Kodan Armada arrives to conquer Earth too. Back on Earth, Beta, who everybody thinks is Alex, Mags, and their friends are taking a night trip to the lake. However, we also see the new Zandozan is stalking them after attacking a police officer and taking over his form and stealing his car. We cut then back to space, where Grig tells Alex about him and shows him pictures of his wife. Alex tells Grig about the park, and that he and his brother Lewis used to play hide and seek in the local caves. Now this gives Alex an idea on how to sneak up on the Kodan command ship. Just then, they encounter 5 more enemy ships, but this time, Alex, who's getting more comfortable with the controls, takes out all 5 easily. He then turns to Grig and says, maybe there is one last starfighter, and that they should go and confront the Armada. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Beta and Mags are at the lake, but more and more Mags recognizes something is very wrong with Alex. Frustrated and unable to carry on the charade, Beta tells Mags that he isn't actually Alex, that the real Alex is actually up in space saving the universe. Now, unfortunately, the Zandozan hears everything Beta just said. He shoots Beta and takes off to return to his ship to notify the Kodan that the last starfighter is actually up there in space with them. Beta, who's perfectly fine after taking the gunshot because, he's an android, and Mags chase the Zandozan in the truck to prevent him from blowing Alex's cover. And just as the assassin was about to complete his message, Beta drives the truck into the Zandozan ship and destroys it before he can complete his message. Now, up on Xur's command ship, they receive only part of the message that got through, the last starfighter, and Xur decides that the ending of the message must have been, is dead. The last starfighter is dead. Commander Krill isn't so sure that's how the message was going to end, but Xur is, so he commands them to proceed with the invasion. With Xur and the Kodan now believing Alex is dead, the fleet moves forward, not knowing that Alex and Grig are actually underneath them hiding in a meteor. As the command ship moves past them, Alex flies in behind them, taking out the communications turret. Commander Krill, realizing that Xur was wrong, claiming that the last starfighter was dead, has had enough and orders that Xur be arrested and taken away. Krill then orders an attack on Alex. Grig evades the attack, and Alex hits the command ship with another volley of missiles, which rocks the ship. Xur, in the confusion, is able to free himself from the guards and escape in an escape pod, setting up a sequel that sadly never came to be. With the command ship crippled, at least for the moment, Alex turns his attention to the squads of Kodan fighters. He takes a number of them out before drawing them close enough that he can unleash Grig's Death Blossom weapon. I told you that would come back into the play here. And he spins the Gunstar rapidly while firing off a wide spread of lasers that takes out the entire squadron of fighters. In one last desperate attempt, Commander Krill, who has no weapons control on the command ship, tries to ram Alex and Grig, but they get out of the way and hit them with more shots, finishing off the Kodan command ship. With the threat now eliminated, Alex and Grig return to Rylos with the whole planet celebrating their victory. The ambassador asks Alex to stay and help rebuild the Star League since, Xur is still out there because he got away. It's here that they reveal Centauri is actually still alive. When a confused Alex says he thought he was dead, Centauri explains that he was never dead, but that his body, being an alien, just shut down so it could repair itself. Back on Earth, at the trailer park, the residents see a bright light in the sky as the Gunstar comes in to land. Extremely confused, the residents see Alex coming out of the ship. He and Grig tell them everything that's happened and that Alex actually saved the universe. Alex then tells them that the reason he came back was to get Mags to go with him. After hesitating, you can't blame her. She is being asked to digest an awful lot of information in this moment. Mags says yes and flies off into the stars with Alex and Grig.